Hey there, and welcome to another episode of your favorite libertarian. It's me, possibly your favorite libertarian. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the M&P Optics Ready Full Size M2.0. You've probably seen this on the channel quite a bit. Actually, the first video that I did on this gun is my most popular, most viewed video. And I get why. This is a very feature-rich platform, especially for the price. I did a video where I talked about why I replaced my Glock 19 with this, and even did a full cost breakdown of the things I had to do to my Glock 19 to get it even close to what this comes with out of the box. So that was a very popular video, and I figured that you guys would want to know more about this gun and how it is doing long term. So that's what this video is, but if you want to see any of my other videos on this gun, you can click up here or up here in the playlists. But for right now, let's get into the long-term review of this guy, shall we? The cons. Now that I've had a chance to carry this quite a bit and shoot it quite a bit, we're going to talk about some of the cons in a more long-term review. Probably a lot of the videos you've seen on this gun have been the initial impressions because it's a pretty new design in the line of M&Ps for Smith & Wesson. I'm going to tell you from a user, this is my EDC, this is what I carry every day. I'm going to tell you some of the things that I found that I don't like that much about it now that I've lived with it for quite a bit. First of which is not necessarily a con for me, but might be for you, is the weight. This is a very heavy setup compared to the other options out there. You have a 17-round magazine right here, loaded with Federal 124 grain HSTs, and then you have an optic and a light and the holster, all rolling the weight of just this right here. And then you also have additional weight if you're carrying an extra magazine on this Tenacore Abdo with a 17-round magazine fully loaded with, again, Federal HSTs. This is the TLR1HL. This is going to add some weight. Again, you have an optic as well. So there's some things that add some weight, but also this slide is very heavy for some reason. I don't really understand why, but it's pretty heavy. So you have a lot of weight in this package, and there's some other options out there that might not weigh as much. All right, we need to talk about the compliance stuff that's on this gun. Now, in case you're not familiar, if you live in a completely awesome state where there aren't any weird compliance issues or any limitations on what guns are allowed to do to still be sold in your state, then you might not be aware, but some states require things like warning labels on guns, loaded chamber indicators. In some cases, there's magazine capacity limits. There's also some really weird stuff that goes on in some states that aren't as free as maybe the state that you live in. Companies want to be able to sell their guns to every state so that they can make the most money. So in an effort to do that, they do dumb things to the gun to make it worse so that they can still make a lot of money. A couple of the things that I'm seeing in this model and some of the other M&P line are two things that are really annoying, and one that's actually affecting things outside of just being annoying. One is this label here. It's just ridiculous to me that some companies feel the need to put caution labels on the guns. You have an owner's manual, you can read that. That has all the warning labels on it. But this one says, caution, capable of firing with a magazine removed. Well, yeah, I would hope so. I want that option if I'm in the middle of a reload and I still need to shoot something, we'll just say something, to be able to fire the round without a magazine inserted. There are some models and some guns that have a disconnect to where if you remove the safety, then you can't fire the round that's in the chamber, but that's not something that anybody who is self-defense minded wants. Either way, I don't feel the need for this to be here. It's kind of annoying that it's here, but it's here. The second thing is going to be the loaded chamber indicator. Now, before I show you what this version has, there's a bunch of ways to do that. A loaded chamber indicator essentially tells you when the gun is loaded, either visibly or tactilely, so you can feel it in the dark. Glocks will typically have their extractor poke out a little bit when the chamber is loaded, and then there'll be a little bit of red sometimes on some guns from some manufacturers, so you can visibly see that it's loaded because the red inside of here will protrude out and you can see, ooh, red, danger, this must be a loaded gun. What Smith & Wesson decided to do in their infinite wisdom is put a big hole right here so you could see, if you're looking over top of the slide, if there's a round in the chamber, just by visibly seeing if there's something shiny in there through that hole. The problem with this design that I have, especially this being an optics ready model, is you have an opportunity for gas and carbon to escape from this little hole and go all over your optic. And what that does is it makes it so after like 100 rounds or so, you have a situation where you have to clean your optic because you're just getting a bunch of crud all over it. You don't want it to dry and harden and then have it be harder to get off and have different solvents that you have to use that could potentially damage the coating of the optic. I digress. But either way, horrible design, horrible place to have a loaded chamber indicator on a gun, especially one that is the optics ready model. We talked about one of the things that made this a little uncomfortable to carry, which was the weight. We'll talk about a few more now, one of which is going to be the sights and another is going to be the grip. For the sights, I talked about how great these sights were in my initial review because I was so happy to finally see a manufacturer come out with an optics ready model that was actually optics ready, meaning it had sights that could co-witness, or at least you could see through your optic, already included in the gun. And I praised Smith & Wesson for that, and I still do. One of my criticisms though, while carrying this with these suppressor height or optics height sights, is that these angles on the sides, these little points, are very sharp. And I should note that I am not an overweight individual. I am 6'3" and 176.6 pounds, not a meme. I still have trouble having this poke my abdomen, and in some cases has actually like scratched my skin as I've been carrying it and moving it around. It would be a minor improvement. All they'd have to do is round it a little bit on each side in their design, in their finishing, and then that wouldn't be an issue, and these would be still great. The other thing is going to be the grip. The grip is super aggressive, which is great when you're shooting it, not so great when you're carrying it. And it's a balance. You kind of have to determine what's more important. Do you want to be uncomfortable when you're carrying it around and have it tear up your clothing, have it tear up your skin, or do you want something that's not going to be as easy to hold on to? There might be a good medium in there with some of the brands like CZ, stippling jobs, aftermarket stuff, etc., but that's something you're going to have to consider. Now, I have seen people say if you sand down this texture, it's not as aggressive. It's still good enough to get a good hold on it, but it's not going to tear up stuff. I haven't done that yet. I've tried to just have my skin fill it in, basically, but it's still really aggressive. So that's something that might be uncomfortable for you to carry if you are a baby like me and you don't want your soft skin to get all scratched up. The last one's going to be the slide catch slide release. It works really great as a slide catch, works really great as a slide release. The problem usually arises when I'm actually shooting the gun because, as you can see, I've got size large hands. Even on the full-size grip, I have some meat hanging off. And then my support hand is the same size, so when I go to put my support hand on, I'm usually finding that this bone or knuckle or whatever you want to call it is rubbing up against this slide catch because the slide catch is very big. It's protruding quite a bit outside of the slide, or further past the slide. It's ambidextrous, and this side doesn't bother me because I'm never really rubbing up against this unless I'm holding it like this and not shooting it. But when I actually have my finger in the trigger guard, it's out of the way. But on this side, I do find I'm getting a lot of rubbing, and with this aggressive texture and with it protruding this much more than the original M&P design, I find it's more of a hindrance than it is a help. The pros. We talked a lot about the cons, and that makes me sad. So let's uplift our moods in this video and talk about the pros of this gun. Most of the pros are going to stem from this being a very feature-rich and upgrade-rich gun for the price, and the key point is the price. You could get all the things that you see here in a Glock 19 or a Glock 17, but you're going to be paying probably the price of the gun in upgrades plus the base gun. And I did a full breakdown of what that looked like for my Glock 19 in a previous video, so be sure to check that out. That'll give you all the pros that I'm going to be going over today in this video. but it's a lot more in depth, and it talks about the things that this has going for it versus the Glock 19 and why I ended up going with this. But I digress. Let's get into some of the pros of this. Now, one of the things that you'll find with a lot of the polymer pistols out there is they don't have really good stippling. This has excellent stippling, and we talked about pros and cons of the stippling, but the stippling is there from the factory. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to take it to a custom shop and get it done. While we're on the grip, let's talk about these grip modules. You get a bunch of different grip modules, which is not uncommon these days with the polymer pistols. But this one in particular of the M&P line not only increases the width this way, but it also increases the width this way. As you can see, you get a nice palm swell that actually contours to the curves of your hand. Oh. While we're on the lower, let's talk about the trigger. Now the trigger is very nice from the factory compared to some of the other triggers you get from factory handguns like, I don't know, staple guns or Glocks. This one, it's got a very predictable wall. I could do that 100 times and never accidentally pull the trigger. And then you've got your dingus here. It's a flat face trigger, which is also nice. And I mean, come on, the trigger just looks cool, right? This is, though, from the factory, so you don't have to pay extra for this. Again, value. Very predictable wall, and then very short and crisp break. Then your reset. Now the reset is an area of contention. Some people like it, some people feel it's too springy, and I'll show you what I mean about springy. Once you get to your reset, which is right about there, your finger is kind of sprung forward a little bit, and then you have to come back to the wall. That's not a huge deal for me. I can still shoot this gun very fast, but it is something that you have to consider if you're looking at this over other brands and what the stock triggers are, and you're not going to be upgrading the trigger. I still, with this trigger, do not feel the need to upgrade it, but you might. That's up to you, and I'm just giving you the information so you can decide what works best for you, your budget, and what you want in a trigger. The slide. This is an area that is extremely feature-rich. I'll talk about the things that I really like about this slide, and then I'm just going to sprinkle in some little tiny cons because I want to be upfront and honest in what I really think about how they designed this slide. First of all, the slide looks amazing. When we talk about looks, we've got the front cocking serrations. They match the rear cocking serrations, that wavy fish scale type design that I really dig, and they're very functional. They work really well. You have the suppressor height sights. Not only do they look good, they work really well. You can see through your newfangled red dot very easily if something ever happens to this new technology. And then you have an optics cut, or a way of accepting plates for an optic. That's included. So none of this stuff you need to send out to some custom shop to do. As soon as you get your carry gun, you can use it. You can enjoy the benefits of the front cocking serrations, the suppressor height sights, and the ability to accept different plates. Where this falls short is execution. As far as the execution goes, there are some areas that Smith & Wesson could have done a better job on. We already talked about the rear sight. You can either sand this down yourself, or they could have made this not as sharp so it's not digging into your skin. Where I do have a bit of a problem is what they included for their plate system. And what they included, and you're not going to believe this when I tell you, but all of the plates are plastic when you get this gun, unless they've changed it since I bought this gun. I feel like they just said, hey, we want to check off the box to say we're including all these plates so that this gun works with all these optics, but they didn't actually want to spend any money on that, so they just said, we'll take the plastic prototype parts, or maybe the 3D printed plates that we're going to use to make into actual metal plates, and we'll just send those. So they don't hold zero. It's a huge waste of time and money to spend range time and ammunition to find out that your surprise optic isn't holding zero, and then you have to go out and buy an aftermarket plate anyway. And in this case, I do have an aftermarket plate. It was about $50. The pro is that if you already know this information going into buying this, you don't waste your time at the range. You just throw those plastic plates out in the garbage, and then you buy a $50 plate from a reputable company that makes aftermarket plates. And then for sub $500 still, you have something that accepts whatever optic you want, specific to your optic, and you have all the other features we talked about. So all in all, still a great slide. You don't have to send anything out. You just have to know in advance that's a little sharp and the plates suck that come with this. So I know I focused a lot on the long-term cons of this gun, but there are a lot of pros going for it as well. This is still my current EDC, and if you'd like to see a full breakdown of my entire EDC, stay tuned for the next video, because that's probably what that one's going to be about, and it will still include this gun for the various pros that I listed in my initial video and in this video as well. I'm not saying that I'm ruling out the possibility of switching up my EDC gun in the future, but this is what I'm currently rocking, and it works for me for the most part. Well, that's going to do it for me and the review long-term of the M&P Optics Ready Full-Size M2.0. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section below. If you have any prayer requests, I love praying for you guys. Leave your prayer requests as well in that comment section. And if you'd like to support my channel, links in the description to all the links like Air Precision, Ballistic Advantage, Battle Steel, Mira Safety, MDFI, some discount codes in there as well. If you want to support the channel, that's awesome. That's where you find the link, is in the description or in the pinned comment. And as always, thanks for watching, stay free, and God bless.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.